Okay, I'd like to call to order Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners work session for December the 3rd, 2012. As a reminder, those in attendance, if you have a mobile device, please put them on silent or on vibrate. We would appreciate it. The first item that we have, Commissioners, is approval of the work session agenda. As you see, I accept a motion to approve the agenda with changes. We have an addition of the Northwest Cabarrus Gym bid tabulation and addition of feasibility study for the senior center upfit. I have a motion to approve the work session agenda. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next, we have our discussion items, which will have no action at this time, more informational. So I would ask for Lynn Whitkey and Will Crabtree are both here. I don't know if y'all want to come up together. Who wants to go first? I know that Mr. Whitkey has another board meeting that probably would like him in attendance. So thank you. This is our regular update on the QSCB projects.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, good evening. Some good news, I guess, is where we're at in things is that we're really down to 4 projects that we're still working on in any major consequence. The 5th project, which I'll draw your attention to, is actually the highest one on the list here, which is Concord High School's furniture. We do have everything ordered now. The last pieces, it'll be coming in because it's coming from a number of vendors. It'll be coming, the last pieces will be in place around mid-February of 2013. To take yours down the list a little bit, I'm speaking of this list. Hopefully you've found that on your
It has a blue top?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's called the Milestone Report.
Okay.
In the Northwest Gym, we did bid the project. Bids were favorable, and we have a contract in place. It's awaiting signature of our board chair. The contractor has signed it for the basic project. We'll be talking to you at your next meeting about some alternatives that were offered by the contractor and that we'd like to pursue. But as I say, we'll present that at your business session. Central Cabarrus High School, the electrical vault work is going on. The major part of that, which will be the change out of the larger electrical equipment at that school, will be done over the Christmas break. Go down a little further, we have various schools, breaker panels. That work continues. It's proceeding on pace. The training of the staff has taken place, so that's in very good shape as well. And the last, I'm going to say active project, is the Jan Fries Middle School, the partial roof replacement. You may recall we did a sort of phase 1 of that project. We had gotten excellent bids, so we're now doing another phase, which includes the majority of the remaining roof, and we will be bidding that in a month or so. That's outside of all the other projects that are either very near or actually complete. Those are the 4 or 5 major projects that are still being conducted. On the back side, second sheet, excuse me, of your report, there are a number, I'm going to count them, there's 5 projects that were postponed and that our board has suggested be reinstated. We are waiting for final resolution of the Northwest Gym budget issues, and once those are resolved, we will take action on those 5 projects as well. Are there any questions?
Commissioners, are there any questions concerning the Cabarrus County Schools projects?
Mr. Whitkey, on the you noted 5. There actually seems to be 7 projects. I'm looking on the second page.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Milestone report.
Mm-hmm.
The kitchen hood replacement at Culture and Webb, boiler replacement, weight room, vocational building, and then down below the chiller projects, entrance canopy and replacement chiller.
Yes, sir.
Are those are the ones that you're talking about as being postponed?
Yes, sir. Okay. The 5 that our board has actually asked to pursue are the first 5. Once we have budget resolution.
And can you talk about the design of the practice fields at Northwest?
Yes, sir.
You have design down. It doesn't say postponed, but it's.
No, that work at one point, because we were going to move forward with it, that work was actually done, and at some juncture in the project, it was and I will say after it was designed, it was set on this postponed in that status. And I think we mentioned last time when we presented that project, we're looking at in a possible partnership with the Army National Guard here in the state, and we are submitting that as a possible work opportunity for their engineering group. If that does come through, then we would want to move forward with that project. So the design work is done. We aren't going to, in fact, bid it as such. We're looking to the Army National Guard to assist us in doing some of the construction work.
Okay. In regards to the weight room at Concord High School, does that include the weights and the apparatus inside, or is it just the building?
At this time, it's just the building.
Okay. And the boiler replacement at Mount Pleasant High School has been marked down as issue design review on November the 15th, 2011. Is that a misstatement, or is it should be November the 15th, 2012?
No, the actual design was done last year.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We do have another item under action, but we're going to get that information at our regular meeting because Mr. Whitkey does need to head back to his board meeting. Mr. Crabtree, we're happy to have you here tonight.
Good evening. Good evening. Glad to be here. Just want to give you an update on our QSCB projects. We have 2 projects still open. They're both at Kannapolis Intermediate School. One of them is the roof. Right now, I'd estimate we're about 50% complete with the roof. The flat roof portion is 100% complete, and the metal roof is about 50%, like I said. Looking probably the end of February for full completion on that project. The second project that's still open is the HVAC, heating and air conditioning at Kannapolis Intermediate School. That project's 99% complete. We're just waiting on the contractor to finish up some of the punch list items and to get one air handler running the way it should be. So hopefully that one will be wrapped up in another month. And I think I've said that probably for the last 2 months, but I hope it's the truth this time. So that's all the projects we have. Does anyone have any questions?
Commissioners, any questions? Thank you very much. We appreciate the update.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item we have 3.2 is Cabarrus Arena and Event Center Annual Report. We're happy to welcome Frank Lapsley. And again, thank you for the refreshments that you all had downstairs. It was very nice.
Thank you for inviting us back. The staff really looks forward to these days when they get a chance to come out and show off. We have forwarded a small video, much like we've done in the past, for you to enjoy. And while we have a lot of great stories to tell about our promoters, our guests, our shows, our staff, there are a couple of things that didn't quite either make the video or a bullet point in our balance sheet. So if I could, I'd just like to give you a couple of things that we improved upon this year. Our renewable and our green efforts, we continue to ask what is next. As you saw, the food and beverage staff provided dining utensils and plates that are compostable. Chad, our chef, Chef Muller, our executive chef, this year grew 2 gardens. He has one specifically for vegetables, another for herbs that he incorporates into the meals. What they take back and they can put into a compost pile. He's built a compost pile out behind the arena too, and we're actually using last year's compost in this year's garden, so we're happy about that. This year we're going to work with Kyle Bellifer's staff and working with the schools. We collect rainwater in a cistern. We have a 1,200-gallon cistern. We're attempting to get a solar module so that we can create a pump that will pump water to the garden and be completely off the grid. It won't be using grid electricity. It'll be using sunlight. So we're hoping that will work. This year we gave back to the community 40,000 square feet of sod. We use it for our alpaca shows. Half went to the school system for ball fields. The other half went to the county, and Kyle was able to use it on county property. Additionally, we've planted some more trees around the property to promote not only how good it looks, but also to create some boundaries. Our labor efforts this year, we've worked closely with the Department of Vocational Rehab. We have 2 permanent janitors who work with us, 2 permanent kitchen helpers, and 2 permanent turnover guys who help set up chairs and tables and all the rest of that stuff. All of these young men and women have some form of vocational rehabilitation need that we've been able to address. For the fair, we actually brought out, and the building where all of the animals were was handled by UMAR, who is the contractor for the state. They did almost 600 hours worth of labor for us, and it worked out very, very well. We additionally employ we employ nonprofit labor groups. Every single high school has some form of a band parent organization or athletic booster who is working with us out at the arena. And for that, this year, I believe we were right around $40,000 that we contributed back to all of these groups in one form or another. The last is our event generation this year. With the help of the county manager and the deputy county manager, we have worked with our promoters and are continuing to take more risk in helping shows come onto the property. The Chris Tomlin concert that we recently held was an example of us working with a promoter to help them couch some of their risks so that they'd be willing to come in and do the show. We'll continue to do that with our bridal show, which is coming up, our TNA wrestling, and a few other shows that we're doing. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. I do think that you and your staff do an excellent job out at the arena. You host a number of events that I think a lot of people now know where the arena is. At one point in time, I'm not certain people knew quite where to find it.
We still get that every once in a while, but
I think that
we're working on it.
you've hit some maps now. Commissioners, anyone have a comment or question concerning the arena and event center?
I get a lot of applause from what y'all do out there, and I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said that if memory serves me correctly, starting January, y'all are going to have one weekend off from January through May.
I don't know what weekend that is. I believe that I believe and I will get back to you on that, but I believe it's through graduation that we're now, and that might have been a couple of weeks ago, but really we don't have any weekends off. We're on an annual basis without any show on property. We're probably only 3 or 4 weekends a year. So, we're pretty booked up.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's a good thing. Any other comments, questions? Thank you very much. Next, we have Kyle Bellifer and Londa Strong are going to come up and talk to us about multi-purpose fields at Franklis Park.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just as some introduction, these 2 fields, this project is on your one project or one-time money list. Tonight, we're just bringing you some more factual information after the discussion tonight. If you think it's a feasible project, then we'll start even digging deeper as to a funding mechanism on how to pay for them. But Jeff Kyle is going to talk about the potential cost, construction and design cost. Londa will talk about how they would fit into her programming at the park. And then we also have Ms. Carpenter, Mr. Mills, and Mr. Applegate from the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And they're going to talk to us about what they can do as far as marketing those fields and bringing in, well, first of all, how to retain the events that are already out there and maybe expand them because we have additional facilities, but then also the potential of these two fields in bringing in additional business as well into the county. So.
Went through the estimated costs and kind of whittled down a bunch of the things. When we first started to design this project, there was multiple phases. Should we start with one artificial turf field and one natural and then build our way up? Basically now, after meeting with the board last time, was told to get cost on 2 artificial turf fields at a certain size. And to do that, we were able to cut out some other work that would need to be done on the natural turf. We've also gotten rid of the irrigation well and any type of sprayers, which means the only concern you would ever have on artificial turf with that is if the turf, the actual substrate, basically the pellets, were to get too hot. There is some OSHA requirements on what you can allow children to play on, but after speaking with the head of the artificial turf division of Mecklenburg, they've never once put water on any of their fields because of any type of safety concerns. So that might be just something that is consistently put in literature, but we've opted out of that. So I tried to give you guys an idea of exactly what it would cost, and if you could scroll down just a little bit more, it would show the total, but you're looking at just over $2 million. Now, if you wanted to forego the actual lights, but obviously put in all your substructure for your lights, basically just not pull your wire or purchase your ballast or your poles or anything like that, you'd be looking at just over $1.7 million. You would have to do that substructure prior to the artificial turf fields. If you went back and tried to do it after, you'd have to tear into the fields. Also, this takes into account that we're using a mid-grade turf. It depends how familiar you are with turf. There's a lot of different types out there. You're looking at about a $3 per square foot difference versus high-end and mid-grade. In terms of use or life expectancy, a lot of it depends on what they want to book and play there, and also how I'm required to maintain it. I haven't seen exactly what sports are going to go on there, so it's difficult for me to tell you, but based on everything I've heard from my several meetings with Mecklenburg, you're looking at 12 to 15 years before you see serious wear on it. And that takes into account how many hours you're using it, and like I said, what type of sports, and also what type of maintenance I do on it. Am I required to brush it back after every single different type of event? Is there different lining I have to do and all that type of, it would be our first time going through it. So I'm planning on going and seeing the new Matthews facilities being constructed, and Mecklenburg has invited me down to see it. So that's kind of what we looked at in terms of all the costs. Also, we have a lot of rock out there, so I had to put a pretty good rock allowance in there to handle some of that stuff. So those are your basic costs there, and I'll let Londa speak about the rest, unless anybody has any questions about the construction of it, per se.
I got some questions.
Of course. Yes, sir.
We are talking about 2 new fields versus two upfitting 2 existing fields.
We are not touching the north complex, if that's what you're asking.
Yes.
The location for this, and there is an actual site map on there, the location of this would be right in front of your tennis courts. It would also be accompanied by a parking lot and a restroom facility, which you would need to do, required by ADA anyways.
Okay. And you said the wear and tear, you would not have any noticeable or wear and tear until after 12 to 15 years, give or take.
Okay. When it comes to bidding this stuff, obviously there's a lot of different manufacturers of this. Mecklenburg has used the same folks every time. They're one of the best in the business. I'm sure if you've had kids or relatives that have played on it, it's probably their product. The Matthews facility is the first one that they're using somebody new. When I asked them specifically how they went about the bidding process, because that is obviously North Carolina general statute on how you bid is very important in a project like this. It is, you are not just buying like carpet and having anybody put it out. You need general contractor permits, actual licenses, the whole 9 yards. Based on what they've told me and the play they get, yes, I think you would start to see wear after 12 years out there. It's manufactured, most of the warranties are 12 to 15 years. Installation would be 1. So if we ended up with a big flap coming up, now a lot of things play into that. Obviously, you don't want to put all sorts of logos in there, then you have extra flaps. They gave me a long list of what not to do, basically.
Now, the safety factor in regards to turf versus, or AstroTurf versus grass. Is there any difference? Is it
Personal or professional opinion?
the one that you're going to be responsible for? I don't care what opinion that is.
I've blown both knees out, one on artificial, one on natural.
Yeah.
Okay, what you read in the magazines, and mind you, they're obviously that literature gets money from a lot of the manufacturers of this stuff. The joints, the actual knees, ankles, because of the actual substrate that's used, it's better on it.
Okay.
I'll tell you from personal experience, yes, it is. It feels a lot better running on it for somebody that has a significant lack of cartilage and things like that. In terms of new turf, when you put it down, it will grab your toes more when you drag. All of that goes back to what sports are we playing on there. You tend, when it first gets on there, it needs to thin itself out. Have I ever seen anything that anybody can prove? No. And now you see a lot of universities putting it in, and I can guarantee you they wouldn't be doing that with scholarship athletes if they didn't think that it was safe.
Let me see here. And is there much difference the difference between mid-grade turf and high-end turf would be what sort of events are going to be held on it? It would be the recommendation.
I think it would be the wear patterns that you would see in it, how it lays down after a certain amount of time.
Okay. And when you say lay down, it's just obviously the length is going to stay the same, so that it just
gets going in one direction, and you got to brush it out. It's literally hockey's probably the wrong description for y'all, but it's very much like a Zamboni how it works.
Okay. Tell me about the fields out there in regards to, is it better for Frank List because of the substrate and what's underneath the grass to have artificial turf as opposed to natural? Or
okay.
And it can be your opinion, it can be your expert opinion, or it can be...
Yes, this will be my opinion. We have not geoprobed or done geotechnical on the entire site of Frank Lisk, but I will tell you that a good portion of Frank Lisk is rock. It's essentially why that tower is there. The lower part of the park is still rock, evidenced why we had to use dynamite when the natural gas line went through there. It is easier for artificial turf, obviously, because it's very difficult for a natural turf to grow on that. To give you an idea, the current soccer fields on the upper complex, 11 soccer fields, did not look like they do now years and years ago. We had to completely cut into the rock and bring in a certain type of compost that met our certain nutrient needs that we needed. And now we finally have an actual root base going. So the answer to your question is, if I could do it anywhere, yes, that is, Frank Lisk would be the better place to do artificial turf versus trying to get a natural growth there. It also allows you to play year-round.
Okay. Will the artificial turf help in the maintenance of the natural fields? Having 2 additional fields out there, will you be able to increase play or be able to increase use that you normally can't do because of the 11 fields that we have? Or is that a Londa question?
Well, that's a Londa question, but I would suspect that it really wouldn't impact it that much because we've gotten pretty good at saying, no, you're not going to damage our natural turf fields at this point. But I think for some of the smaller tournaments they do where they have to divide the fields up, so they take a large field and you divide a field up. When you do that, you basically create more wear patterns in the field. I think that this would benefit those, yes. Okay. That's to say if they weren't booked for something else. So that's why I say it's a Londa question.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
To kind of go along with what Kyle was saying, Yes, along the question, in working with Kyle over the last 5 years, we have developed a number of hours per field for play so that we limit play. And we shut down November, December, January, June, July, and August for maintenance. Otherwise, the fields would not look the way that they do. Some of the questions that we've been asked over the last little while, why don't you put lights on? We have lights on three fields now. Why don't you put lights on the other fields? Well, all you're doing is making more wear on the fields that have finally gotten up. We just got the report for this quarter, and I think the lowest one was a 6. Everything else was like a 7 or an 8 based on a 10 as far as how they've made it through this year. So we're getting some root growth, some grass, some turf established so that we don't have the danger that we used to have, especially with the rock underneath. And we had like little washboards out there, and you all have put quite a bit of money into it, and we've been working very hard to keep that in as good a shape as it is. Will it increase use of the facility? Those 2 fields, obviously, yes. If they're lit, we have, right now we have requests because of the times that we close, depending on the time of year it is. We have requests to stay longer. So, you know, no, if we didn't have lights, they couldn't be there, and then they want more than what we can actually give them now. So the type of tournaments, facilities that we would be able to have with those 2 fields that were lit, you could add a lot of play on weekends and evenings. Within our fee and charge policy, we do have information established for after hour or before hour fees, so that if we have to bring somebody in, that we can. Those 2 fields would be able to provide not only overflow for the 11 fields, because there are a few tournaments that FCCA has that use fields in Mecklenburg County, Rowan County, every soccer field that they can find. So in addition to overflow for softball, soccer tournaments, we would be able to have lacrosse, which we have a huge demand for lacrosse right now. And to the best of my knowledge, there aren't any lacrosse fields in the county specifically for lacrosse. There may be some with the schools, I heard, that we're going to develop, but the lacrosse is much harder on the turf than soccer is, so that would definitely be a great opportunity for them. And then the 3v3 tournaments, that tournament that we hosted this past summer, the little kids soccer, they played 3 or 4 games per field that we would be able to add. In the summertime, when a lot of those tournaments want to go on, when we're closed, we would be able to host that. So it appears that, and with the assistance of CVB and some of the other groups, that we would be able to host or at least expand on existing tournaments. I've been doing some research on what other people charge in the area for fees, and it's not a whole lot more than what we're charging now, so it appears like we'd have to come up with some good money for our return on investment, but that would, I think the demand is there, but I don't really know for sure. Questions?
I have a question. On the picture, which we have up, this one's labeled a proposed grass field and a proposed artificial turf. Is it a grass and a turf, or is it 2 turf?
When the project was first presented to me and told to go out and figure out what it would take to do it, it was, we might have to phase and do 1 artificial and 1 natural. No, those will be 2 artificial turf fields. I didn't pay the extra money for the new updated diagram.
That's okay. I just want to make sure, because I know that's what you said, but I just want to verify. So, other questions?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, so I was looking at the breakdown of the cost, and if the life expectancy is 12 to 15 years, presumably what current market rate would be about $900,000 to replace. Is that correct?
That's correct. It depends. You would probably see another drop in turf by then. I got to be honest with you, as the technologies go up, but I couldn't say for sure.
Okay, and then I was going to ask you, I guess there would be no maintenance generally on this field?
Not as in the what you and I would consider maintenance that you would do on current grass, but yes, there is maintenance, mostly brushing and putting the pellets back in and things like that. You're looking at a cost of about $4,000 annually per field. To give you an idea of what that compares to on a natural turf, for our natural turf fields, you're looking at 15 to 17, depending on
Okay.
depending on what type of play we have on it that year.
15 to 1,700 or 15?
$1,000
Okay.
per field.
Okay. Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Does this 1.7 million represent the artificial turf for both fields?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Commissioner White, do you have any? Commissioner Morris, do you have any questions? I know we're throwing you right into it.
Well, the one question I would have is basically the difference in, I mean, I'm sure it's expensive to establish the natural fields, and this is a bit more upfront or not? Double or?
It's a difficult, it's not apples to apples the way that you're asking it. The last time we did it was a significant, I think it was about a couple $1 million. It was about $3 million, but that got us 11 fields because we were able just to go out there and do it all at once.
Right.
Now you're talking about a bathroom facility, a complete infrastructure underneath, artificial turf, pathways for lighting and everything like that. Would I say it's comparable? No, I think it'll last a heck of a lot longer. I think it'll be much more than 15 years if you really want me to be honest with you. I really do. I'm just telling you what the manufacturers tell us. I've played on Mecklenburg's turf for years, and if you can get it booked, you can just keep on rolling and rolling and rolling and getting the people in and out of there. A lot of it depends on your business plan, and a lot of it depends on how late you want to keep that park open. But you go down to Mecklenburg, and, you know, not that, I'm just telling you because that's my best resource, because their size of their turf division is the size of my entire grounds maintenance crew. So they know what they're talking about. They've got the equipment. I can tell you their lights burn till 11 o'clock at night, every night. And they don't give you that 5-minute warm-up period. You're off and there's another team on.
So we will quickly pay, even if it is an additional expense, with the improved maintenance expense. The difference, you said $4,000 a year on the artificial turf and 15 to 17 on the turf fields.
Yeah, I mean, we will save our money on maintenance, but you have that initial construction cost for it, and you know how many reservations you're going to have a year, and how you're going to break up play, and who gets priority. I couldn't tell you what your return on investment will be. I can tell you, would I rather build 2 natural versus 2 artificial? In terms of maintaining it, the artificial appeals to me. In terms of the going in and not knowing, because I've never done it, I would have to go out there. I'd be picking a lot of people's brains before I did it, and I would pretty much make sure that our contractor decision-making process was pretty much on spot.
Thank you.
The figure that you said, $15,000 to $17,000 for maintenance on the natural fields, is that for all 11
per field? Per field, correct.
Okay.
That takes into everything from your pesticides, herbicides, your aerating, your mowing, everything that we do.
Okay.
That's per year?
Yes.
If you do these 2 artificial fields, what's the payback on them?
You would have to know what your business plan is and what you're booking of them.
Well, I mean, in the private sector, before you do something, you know what the payback's going to be or how long it's going to take.
And I don't disagree with you.
That's correct. Mr. Burge, this is sort of another informational meeting just as to what the fields are going to look like and what they're worth, and then we would do, as you say, a business plan after we move on, before you guys would make a decision. So you would have that in place.
I mean, it just seems like government's the only thing to do things and not know what the cost is going to be or how long it's going to take to get the money back and all that, and the private sector can't do that kind of stuff.
I think that before we would make a final decision, we would have that information. The CVB is here. Can we ask you guys to come up? Because I think they may be able to give us part of that picture, Commissioner Burridge, that you're looking for on the marketability, if you will, of the fields. Welcome.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to appear before you all. Well, to answer your question, I cannot answer your question. To give you a specific dollar amount, what I can tell you is that these 2 turf fields would enable us to enhance what we currently have. It would give us a better product to be able to take when we go to trade shows and meeting those different sports. I can answer the question for Kyle as to how much we would use the fields and what sports would be played on that. Number 1 would be as much as they would let us. And number 2 was any sport that we can play on those fields. We will go after those very aggressively. We cannot guarantee you what we can get. We know what's out there, and I think Mr. Applegate is going to speak to you in reference to that. As far as funding goes, right now, currently, from the CVB, we currently provide, our board actually agreed 5% of our budget goes towards your sports funding. It's earmarked for sports, and currently that equals out to about $200,000 a year. So we are already currently partners in this sports projects anyway, and we would love nothing more than to see those two turf fields, because we've turned away a lot of business because we've been one of the many that Londa and Kyle have said no to when we bring pieces of business that we just can't currently use those natural fields to be able to play. So, do you have questions for me before I turn it over to Mr. Applegate? Okay.
Good evening. Pleasure to be with you. In terms of selling and marketing these proposed fields, that responsibility would rest upon me. In addition to handling our sales and services efforts, I also run our sports department. So about 6 or so times a year, we're out in front of events rights holders and events organizers and pitching them Cabarrus County as a site for their tournaments and championships. We have a terrific asset right now in Franklin Park. It's a gem. It truly is. What we're proposing here would simply take us to the next level. It really would. It would help differentiate our destination from some others. And as we had mentioned here, Fort Mill, Mecklenburg, there's Statesville, there's some others that are beginning to put these types of fields in, and therefore they're opening up their facilities to longer periods of play. Right now, we invest about $125,000 in the sports market, just on the sales and marketing end. So that supports us in our efforts to get out there to shows, to get out and communicate the value of hosting these types of events in Cabarrus County. It also helps us to maintain a large presence, not only at the shows, but also in the type of industry publications that these event rights holders read consistently on a monthly basis. So from my standpoint, we are having a lot of success now with 11 fields out there. We're hosting 2 soccer tournaments a year with FCCA. But those soccer fields, as I believe Londa had mentioned, aren't quite adequate enough in terms of maintaining the quantity of play that we'd want to have in Cabarrus County. Because of the lack of facilities basically in the Charlotte metro area, that tournament, which hosts about 200 teams, plays in Iredell, it plays in Mecklenburg, it plays in Cabarrus, and actually the anchor is Franklin Park. If we expand that, then we're just going to be able to maintain more play in our county, more travel to our county, more hotel room nights in our county, rather than having Huntersville, University area, Mooresville, getting some of that, as is happening now. So from a couple of different directions, this would really be a terrific asset to me to have, to talk up our destination and to make a very solid impression on events right holders. 3v3 soccer is another one that we had and worked well with the county on last summer. And we were able to get some leeway and actually doing an event in July. And typically, Alonda had mentioned those 6 months a year where it's difficult to get access to those facilities. But we were able to make some concessions and make these fields available for a one-day event. And we brought in 54 teams, and about 45% of them were from out of town. Now, it was nice because it was our first interaction with 3v3 Live. They liked it so much they want to do a two-day tournament with us this year in July and have us be a regional final location that feeds into their championships down in Orlando. If we were able to do that, we could double the amount of teams that we could be hosting. And again, so there are all these types of opportunities out there, and we're doing a solid job now with what we have. And I can confidently say that we could increase opportunities if I have these additional assets to sell and present. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Got some questions. In regards to, you said that, is it 3D3?
Oh, 3v3, 3 versus 3. So
okay.
It's typically the soccer clubs aren't playing in the summer. The big seasons are spring and fall, but they encourage a lot of touches. So players of various age groups are encouraged to get out there and to play. So this is something that's been developed by some organizers over the course of time, of the last few years. So there's a lot of interest in that, so that the kids maintain their touches and maintain their training regimens, even though their clubs might not be up and running. So these tournaments have become very popular. And 3v3 Live out of Colorado is one of the largest in the country. And we actually enjoyed being able to have the opportunity to work with them last year and want to continue a long-term relationship with them.
Now, you're talking about soccer. There's certainly a multitude of other activities that could be played on turf fields, and I don't think Mr. Billifer limited anything on the field, any sporting events. You're talking about lacrosse, rugby, and those all would be much greater in size of teams. I mean, the number of people on the team.
Right. That's true. You know, typically about 10 to 15 or so for soccer teams, probably a little bit more than that, closer to 20 or so for a lacrosse team, in terms of athletes per team. So that's right, that would enhance opportunities. I'm not sure that we've done a lot of lacrosse so far because they've been grass fields. On a turf field, lacrosse is much more practical. Even if we had just 2 turf fields, we could host lacrosse events on those two fields, upwards of 16 teams or what have you, depending upon hours and whether or not they're lighted. But even 2 fields, we could get something going. Actually, today I had a phone call from a lacrosse retailer in Cabarrus County who's interested in starting tournaments. And in the past, there has been some pushback about getting something going simply because summertime would be an opportune time to run it, and that's a period of time where we're letting fields rest at Frank List Park. That wouldn't necessarily be the case if we had the turf fields. So coincidentally, just had that phone call and conversation this morning when that gentleman doesn't realize that we're here having this discussion tonight.
How is the location of Frank List in regards to Speedway Boulevard and the hotels there? Does it help? Does it hurt? Does it really matter?
You know, I guess it doesn't necessarily matter. It's been great because it's an asset in and of itself. It's worth getting over to that facility. Case in point, we worked with FCCA. The shootout back on November 9th was their registration date or their sign-in date. Friday night, we hosted the registration in our visitor center, in our Convention and Visitors Bureau offices. All the out-of-town teams came by our visitor center to pick up their registration packets. So I like that that interaction because they were right there on exit 49, 9 hotels there as well. So they were able to get a little bit more familiar with the destination. And sure, from there it's a 15 to 20-minute drive over to Frank List Park, but it's just the nature of our destination. So I can see continuing to do that going forward as it helps the out-of-town teams involved understand the destination a little bit more and all the hospitality and tourism assets that are available in our destination. Just to follow up on that, we had 195 teams in the fall tournament. That's on the fall soccer tournament. That's typically a little bit smaller than the spring tournament. But of those 195, 65 came from outside of the Charlotte region. So they came from out of town, out of state in a lot of instances. 6 different states were represented among the teams and clubs participating. So they're all teams that are taking hotel rooms and eating their meals out and visiting attractions and looking for some other downtime activities. So all very valuable to our community.
I don't know if it's a question for you, Mrs. Carpenter or Mr. Mills, but the return on investment in regards to tourism dollars, in investing $1 in tourism, what sort of return do we get back, or what sort of return is typical? Is that for you, Mrs. Carpenter, or Mr. Mills?
It's 4 to 1, actually. For
So-
every $1, you get 4 back.
Okay.
What's the breakdown of that? If you put in 1 and you receive 4 back, is that spending at the hotel? Is that spending at,
It's cumulative. It's all of the above. So
Okay.
it's not,
So
you
we
can't,
don't-
there's
we
no
can't
way
pay.
to actually narrow down whether it's, it could be food and beverage, it could be their hotel stay, any of those things. But the state of North Carolina, that number actually comes from them. They're the ones that give us that number.
Okay.
How much revenue does it produce for the parks? I've heard all about the teams coming in, but hadn't heard anything about revenue for the parks.
Revenue from the park would be, I think that would be a Londa question, I guess, on what those teams actually pay to participate. And so we don't have that information. I think Londa would have that.
While she's coming up, I would say that a good portion of the 5% that we're getting back is a return on the investment that we're seeing.
From us.
Right.
Exactly.
Currently, I have no idea what we would even charge. So we don't know how many tournaments we would have, or practices, or games, or whatever the facility would be.
What do you receive in revenues from FCCA tournaments?
Nothing.
There you go.
The only thing we receive from FCCA is if they're after normal hours or before normal operating hours.
But that's part of the contract that somebody made with FCCA
That is correct.
10 years ago, 15 years ago?
Let's see.
I mean, a long time
It's
ago.
a
That's
long
my
time
point.
ago. Yeah, that was something I was going to add to that.
So that going forward, if these fields were built, if they were built, it would not be it would be a decision for this board to make whether it's a contract with the FCCA or not. But if it's not, then certainly there would be revenue there
Correct.
from the tournaments and all that.
Yeah.
Correct.
Mr. Burrs, just to answer, elaborate a little bit. There's 11 fields out there right now. In our contract, we built those fields. FCCA is a local soccer club. They paid $300,000, and Concord paid $300,000 to have priority use on those fields. So there's 11 fields that can only use 5 or 6 months a year, and they are booked solid with FCCA in the city of Concord. And they're only allowed to be used for adults, or for youth. So these other fields, or anybody besides FCCA can't get on there, except for the City of Concord Youth Leagues, and that's only a couple of months a year that they use. The rest of it is FCCA, and we're maintaining it for FCCA.
And that was 10 years ago.
That's been 12, and I think there's 13 years left in the contract.
And we're spending how much per field to keep them up?
15 to 17,000
Per field,
per field per year.
every year?
Yes.
Yes,
So
sir.
the last 15 years, we've been spending that for $300,000.
Probably not the first 7 years. The last 5, yes.
All I got to say is us government is worst.
These fields here, again, and the purpose of these fields would be, they would not be involved in any contract. They could be used for adult soccer, they could be used for lacrosse, they could be used for flag football tournaments, they could be used for kickball tournaments, ultimate frisbee tournaments. So, and these fields would be used to generate revenue and to bring people in, bring other people into the county, as well as local can use it during the week when there's no tournament. So I just wanted to let you know that is it. The fields that are out there are pretty much restricted. Those people can use it, and we maintain them.
the 4 softball fields at Franklin that are lit, we generate somewhere around, just on tournaments, we generate somewhere around $15,000 to $20,000 each year, just depending on how many we have or if they get rained out.
That's including the power bill, right?
Including the power bill?
Y'all paying the power bill?
Yes.
For them being lighted?
Yes.
Y'all know what that is?
Kyle could probably.
It depends on what month you're doing.
Yeah, come on.
It depends on how long they're on.
But
If you want an exact annual figure for all the lights out there, I could probably have it for you in about 15 minutes, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. You pay a standard rate even when they're not used. You obviously pay a demand charge to Duke. So it's not just the actual field lights out there, it's also all of our irrigation wells have their own services out there. So if you want that number, I could have it for you.
Do the light fixtures belong to Duke? Are they leased from Duke or?
No, they're
County put 'em up?
Musco, and we have a contract with them.
Okay, any other questions? Again, this is just information purposes. This will not be on our agenda yet. It's just a matter of, this was one of the items that we have been discussing, and as we proceed towards making a decision, we need to make sure it's an informed decision. And so the point of tonight was to get, begin discussion and to get some additional information. Okay, the next item that we have, Jonathan Marshall and Kelly Sifford. Kelly still here, or just Jonathan?
Just me.
She was here earlier.
She was.
Monthly reports on building activity.
My understanding to Mr. Downs, our county manager, was you were looking for some reports that we could give to you on a monthly basis that would give you some idea of what the activity levels were, both in terms of permitting and then our plan review, our major plan reviews, as well as subdivision and development approvals. So the first report is actually a monthly report for the month. It's a 2-page report for the month of October, and that's showing just some of the major plans that have been submitted to us. It gives you just some basic description to them. There is a much more complex version of this. This is actually more of the summarized version I thought would be helpful to you. And what I wanted to do is just supply these to you this month and let you look at them. If there's additional information as you read this or have questions or maybe columns we can add. And one of the things I'd like to add to this is show you a pending status. And that's going to vary depending on where that plan is. So, for instance, if it's in the city of Kannapolis, we may have finished our building plan review and they're doing a fire review. Same way if it's in the town of Harrisburg. And some of them require health department approval, for instance, a restaurant. So you're going to see the status of what part of that has been approved, and then also whether or not we've issued a permit. Because what we found for a long time is we were getting our plan review activity picked up, but our permitting activity had not picked up. That has turned around here lately. We are starting to see those permits issued for those buildings that we've done plan review on. So this is just an example. You'll see on some of them there's an estimated cost and an estimated square footage. On others, both of those may be zero for a couple of different reasons. One, it may just be an upfit, so it's existing square footage, so you'll see a zero there. On another, the estimated cost, I struggle a bit on why we're showing zero on those, but that we have to have that by the time we actually issue the permit. So it may be that when they've gotten the plan review in, they've not estimated the cost of construction yet. Again, this will, I think, in more than anything else, as you get these reports, it may spur other questions you have, which you can direct to staff, and then we can provide more information on a particular project. Again, the most common question I get is when ground starts to be turned, someone asks me, what's that going to be? And this may give you a chance to answer that without having to call and ask us. The second report is one that we use very consistently. It's actually our Dodge report, which is a census report where we break down permits by type and value, and we've categorized them. And you can see, so for the month of August, there was a total value reported for those permits of almost $14 million. And then it's broken down by type. We use these a lot of times also to determine how things are looking year to year. So this morning I ran the reports to compare year to date for 2012, so from January 1st, 2012 to the end of November. Looking at that again compared to last year for that same time period. This year, we're at about $255 million of reported value of construction. Last year, in that same time period, we were only at $183 million. So we're seeing a pretty significant increase, and that's being reflected in our inspection numbers also. Kelly monitors our inspection numbers, how many inspections we're doing per week, so we know that we're not overloading the inspectors. And then that in turn shows up in the revenues for that department. We currently have, I believe, 8 field inspectors who are going out on a daily basis. We have one position that is remained in the budget when we reduced the force in that division, but it's unfunded at this point. And we may need to come back in the future and ask for that to be funded. And we would do that by revenues. So we treat it like a business. When the revenues go up, we will and support that. And we see that in the inspection numbers. We'll show you that those revenues have gone up above what we had predicted for the year, and that we need another inspector to cover that. And we're monitoring that. Of course, we're coming up on a slower time of year for us over the winter, but our numbers last week, for instance, were very high. We have inspectors who are doing quite a few inspections in one day. So these are just 2 reports that the third part of that would meet your request is the major developments, and that's probably the more difficult for us to put together. With building inspection, and both these reports come from building inspection activity, we cover the entire county for building inspection plus that portion of Rowan that's in the city of Kannapolis. So we cover the entire jurisdiction. For major developments, subdivisions in particular, those are sometimes in the county, but oftentimes in the city's jurisdiction, and they're the ones looking at that. And that's one where we're working with the cities to get a better reporting on that, because that's what we've used to calculate or help calculate our expected school-age population. So that report will be a little more difficult for us to put together because it requires that cooperation. But we're looking at doing some quarterly meetings with just the planners to explain to them our need for that data and help them understand why it makes sense to report that to us and for us to compile it and give it to you. So that would be the third part of this. So again, I'm just presenting these not for a decision tonight, but these are just 2 examples of reports I think begin to answer your questions. And if you have additional questions and there's some way we can answer them, we'd be happy to do that.
Well, I for one appreciate the report. I know I get, usually that's what happens. I'm one of them that contacts you. I'll get an email and, we drive, at least for me, let me say, I kind of drive the same pattern on a daily, weekly basis. There's certain places that I go to, and my car automatically knows how to get there. Sometimes I get there and think, how did I get here? Because I'm kind of an autopilot to certain destinations. And there's certain part of the county that I frankly just don't drive on that often. And when I do, then, you do a double take or a triple take trying to figure out what in the world is that over there. They've just, cut all those trees down and what in the heck's going on. And Jonathan has always been very kind to respond when I ask him, give him a location and ask him what's going on there. And usually he knows right off the top of his head exactly what's going on.
Or I'm asking someone.
Or you're asking somebody, and I don't realize that you're asking somebody. But nonetheless, I think this is important. I think it's hopefully exciting news and something that will continue if our permits are up for this year. Hopefully that'll continue into 2013. So
that is almost a 40% increase, by the way, from last year year-to-date to this year year-to-date. And again, that's very much reflected in the number of inspections they're doing.
Any comments or questions, Commissioners? Commissioner White?
In the report, would it be difficult to either do a look back for last year or a quarterly look to see, because the first 2 pages of the report that we have is the commercial building plan review summary. It gives us a total, but there's no point of reference as to, in looking at the report, what was last year. So I don't know if that's something, if it's easily obtainable, that's great. Mm-hmm. If you're going to have to dig through and spend a lot of staff time, I like the report like it is. I don't want you to spend a whole bunch of staff time to try and figure out what a comparison is from last year to this.
I don't think it would take that much. It's easy for me to say. Our folks from IT will tell you that Nick Roberts on the IT staff actually manages our Acela software. The software that we employed some 5 years ago now allows us to do quite a bit of this.
Well,
so any report that he can run now, he can run for another time period. So it would not be difficult.
Well, if you'll check with them.
I will.
And make certain that it's not going to be impinged, increase in his workload. And the same thing with the construction standards Dodge report. I'm not looking for a break. If it's easy enough to run a report just to columns, last year, this year, or last quarter, something like that. I'm just looking at what's the significance of 13 million when I have no idea, I don't know what the baseline is, or I don't know what last year was like.
And
Okay.
that is easy enough to do, and what I've done in the past is gone through and just done a month by month for each year, so you can just see that activity as it goes back a few years, how each month tracks compared to the previous year, the year before that, and so on.
I would appreciate that, because I think then I can have a point of reference.
Okay.
Thank you.
And that's exactly why I did the year-to-date for this year and last, and of course, we can go back any time period and do that.
When you say year-to-date, I don't have that.
I did not. That was a report I ran this morning just for my own reference. I'd be glad to give you my paper copy. But I did the same Dodge report looking at January 1st through the end of November for last year versus this year, just to get an idea of what we suspected, which is that activity has increased a great deal this year compared to last.
This may be, when you ask, it may be, is it easier to do a graph of January, February, March to see it like that, or columns, of last year, this year? So either, whatever is the easiest. I just want to get a point of reference.
All right, sure.
Madam Chair, these reports were generated as a result of the board's request. If you don't see something that you like, as Mr. White has done, or not that you like, that you want to see more of, what some direction for staff is, do you want these, would you like these as written reports, or would you like them to be presented each month, or quarterly be presented in a written report every month? What's your pleasure on that?
If they're available for me to look at, I don't want to take, I can look at it. If someone just says, it's ready, here it is, why don't you take it? And then if I see something that jumps out at me, I would say, can I get some more information on this or that? And then if that's pleasure of the rest of us, that's great. If not, then someone just call me up and tell me.
Okay, well, we'll continue for at least in the short term with monthly written reports, and they'll just go into your report section.
That would be good. Any other comments on that? Okay, next we have updates to the Code of Ordinances.
I'm sure you're all familiar with our Code of Ordinances. That's my hard copy. More often than not, people are looking at this electronically. It's maintained by MuniCode Corporation for us, and it's available through our website. Mr. Downs, again, I believe, was going through there and has seen there are some very out-of-date references on some portions of these.
Anything back to 1879?
Nothing back to 1879.
It needs to be condensed down to about 3 or 4 pages.
There are actually some things, and I was going to point this out to Commissioner Burridge, that we will be looking to just eliminate. So what we've done is we've assigned different sections of this to the responsible department. In some cases, that is multiple departments. In some other cases, it has moved on to our legal services. So people are working on those, and there are places where we will be eliminating some parts of these ordinances. Cable television is one that now is regulated at a state level and not through a local ordinance. So we'll be asking you to eliminate that from the Code of Ordinances. But each of them will be coming to you in a revised text format. And what I'd like to do, I guess, is find out from the board how you would like to proceed with those. I would suggest that you look at maybe a dedicated workshop where we could come in and have those staff people present those sections to you before we move forward in a meeting where you would have to adopt an ordinance or a resolution to make changes to the ordinance. But we would be open to any format that you would like in order to go through these.
Do you have an idea of the time frame on when we would need to?
Well, there's going to be some that are going to be ready for your review sooner than later, so it may be that we just pull 1 or 2 at a time for each month. It's going to probably take 6 to 8 months to get through this whole process, I would think, to get through all of the different ordinances. So we maybe go 1 or 2 that are easy to get you guys used to seeing these ordinances, because these are not something you see every day. So, but if that's your if you're okay with that, we could start. I believe there'll be 1 or 2 ready in January.
There are some, yes, there are some already ready that could start coming to your work sessions.
Okay.
I think that'd be fine for us to start with them and know that it's going to take a number of months for us to get through everything.
Yeah.
Anybody else have questions?
Would it be better to do all of them all at one time or piecemeal them and at the end we adopt them or we pull them out?
I think it may be better to proceed with doing them in batches because there are some that we're still working on. In particular, there are going to be some that we're still working on and some that are going to be more controversial than others, where I think you're going to want to concentrate on that one. And the one that comes to mind is one that we jointly interpret with the Sheriff's Department, and it comes up all the time. It's in miscellaneous offenses, and it is when people are doing shooting on their property and the distance that needs to be from homes. And that has proven over the years, and you've probably seen some of these cases that have come up in the media, but we see others where a deputy has to try and make an interpretation on site, and the way this ordinance is written is difficult to do. So then it goes up to the captain level, ultimately to the sheriff. We're helping them interpret that through GIS data. It just becomes really complicated. So that's one where we put together some examples where Susie Morris has been working with the sheriff, and then we pass those examples along to Rich Cook to help us with. So I think if you do them in batches, you're going to find that I think some of them are going to be simpler than others, and then some you may want to concentrate just at one meeting.
Does that answer your question? Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you.
Well, in January, you'll probably start seeing the first batch.
That sounds like a plan. Okay, the next item we have are discussion items to be placed on our action agenda, either consent or the action agenda at our next meeting. The first item, 4.1, is reallocation request from Cabarrus County Schools. As I commented earlier, both Mr. Whitkey and Ms. Klutz needed to go to the school meeting that they had also tonight. So we would like to just place 4.1 on new business, and then they'll come in at that meeting and they'll be able to give their presentation to us. So at this time, we'll go to 4.2. Londa Strong. Active Living and Parks Department 2013 Fees and Charges Policy, page 23 of your agenda.
We have, for the last 2 or 3 years, been doing this in January instead of July with the budget, simply because a lot of the programs have already started by July 1, so instead of holding it off for another year or changing fees in midstream, we do this for January 1. There aren't a lot of proposed changes for this year. Obviously, we would change the name to Active Living and Parks Department throughout the document. 501c3 place of operation versus just being a Cabarrus County 501c3. Utilization of water for dunking booths and similar activities. We would like to add pool party package at Camp Spencer. We've had a lot of requests for that, and we've been working with Mr. Billifer on a specific area so that we would be able to do that. Probably the biggest thing here, a few years ago, we just started a 2-night minimum on cabins throughout the year. So, because what we were ending up with was somebody stayed on Friday night and then we were losing out on Saturday night. So we made the 2-night minimum. It's been working really well. But in the winter months, November through the end of February, we think that it would be better if somebody wants to stay one night. There's not that huge demand in the winter, and it would lend itself better to the consumer instead of making them stay 2 nights. So that's a big recommendation. As well as the $100 fee for administration on road races. Currently, we do not have any road race. When a group from outside wants to have a road race at any of the parks, there is not a current fee for that. We've just been helping them. There were 14 races out of 16 weekends at Frank List Park this past fall. So the demand has been a little bit more than staff time we have, so we were going to look at making them rent specific shelters, depending on where they wanted to have the race, and then if they wanted administrative help, there would be a $100 fee for that. And the general services staff also makes sure that whether it's a cross-country course or the regular trail are in good shape. So there's a lot of time that's being spent on that, and we were not getting any revenue in return. Thanksgiving Friday for Commissioner Morris, this happened before you last year after this was passed. Thanksgiving last year must have been 100 degrees, and we had a lot of phone calls saying they had to go out of county to go to a park. And a lot of, so when I say a lot, 15 or 20 phone calls on the voicemail over the weekend or on Monday. So we came to the board and said, what do you think? They said, hey, let's open up on Friday. At North Cabarrus Park, which is the smallest of the parks, there were 717 people in the park on Friday after Thanksgiving. So that worked out well, so that changes in here as well. Basically, that's it, a few little changes here and there, but any questions, please? There is a summary page that has all of the changes if you have any specific questions on any of those.
Commissioners, do you have any questions? I think it's good to know that if you're open, I was worried with your lead up that you were going to tell us nobody was in the park on that Friday, so I'm glad to know that it was a wise decision and that there are a lot of people there. Okay, if there are no questions, then thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item we have 4.3, General Services, Senior Center Renovations and Expansion Feasibility Study Findings, and we have Kyle back with us.
I'd like to take this minute just to answer Commissioner Burge's question. Was annually how much at the Frank List Park's softball complex? Between the irrigation and the lighting, electrically, you're looking at $12,000 to $13,000 annually. That also takes into account the actual ball field concession stands, so your HVAC units and everything there. I could whittle it down more if you want, but that's ballpark. Yep. During the September 4th, 2012 work session, the board and the county management discussed a one-time project which would be funded by the excess fund balance. One of the possible projects discussed was the renovation and/or expansion of the current senior center located at 331 Corbin Avenue in Concord. The board requested more information on the possibilities of renovation and/or expansion, including layout, projected cost, operational impact. General Services, we went out and did an RFQ. We brought in Morrisonburg Architects to basically conduct a feasibility and engineering study. While it's not 100% complete, it's about 99% complete, and attached here, there was a few things that I had to speak with the architects about this morning, and I can discuss those when we get to the cost of it. Basically, we met with the active living and park staff several times, looked at their needs, and basically came up with 3 phases or 3 options, and then went through each of those options and costed them out. Now, to bring your attention to a few things about that building, it's just at about 15,000 square feet. Okay, that was built in the old 79 building code. Title V is an actual Title V building in that. To expand, we would only be able to expand once under the 2009 rehab code. So if we want to expand, we get one time and one time only. And the most you can expand to is 25% of the actual square footage out there. Now, the expansion that's proposed here, after looking at it, is 1,265 square feet. You might ask why we wouldn't go to the total 25%. The answer is footprint. There's not really anywhere to go. You've got a cliff on one side and a wetland in the back. So basically, we've kind of looked at exactly what we could do and what the needs were. And not only did I get this feasibility study attached on here, we also have some documentation from the actual staff in terms of their class growth, fitness needs and exercise needs, and also about some general increasing of the actual senior, population here, both in the county and in the state. So that's kind of what you're looking at right there. Is the actual attendance. It does show it growing year after year. The next page is what staff compiled into a bunch of notes concerning what the folks there that are attending the senior center are asking for. They have daily requests for more fitness equipment. Also, they are being referred to the senior center for what I assume is physical therapy after their allotted amount of physical therapy or paid for physical therapy has ended. It is suggested to them by their physical therapist that they continue up with this rehab. The senior center provides that opportunity for them to do it, and right now they don't have the amount of equipment or the size or the space to do such. The feasibility study, to get back to kind of the phases, the first phase was just actually swapping around a couple classrooms. And after meeting with staff and discussing with them, they felt that that wasn't even worth doing. Really wouldn't provide them with an operational increase of any sort. The phase 2 was actually to go in and take one of the classrooms. So I know you've all been to the senior center. When you walk in, immediately on your right-hand side, you have the fitness room. And on the other side of that, if you were to walk down the hall, you have one classroom. So we would basically be cutting into that wall in between the current fitness room and the classroom and expanding the fitness room size. By doing this, we would also have to add toilets, okay? That building does not meet fixture codes. So we are going to have to put in restroom facilities one way or the other, whether we expand or whether we just renovate what we have there now. We are going to have to put those facilities in. We've met with both building inspections and talked with folks at the state. There's going to be no way around that. So we would be adding those 2 restroom facilities right there on the corner of the fitness room and then tearing into that wall where that classroom is to increase the fitness room size. We would also at the same time swap out one of the classrooms and gut that out. And there's some PDFs that actually show what the different phases are. Yeah, if you could just keep scrolling down. I don't know who's running it, but I'll tell you when. Keep going. That's the current layout. Okay, that is phase 1 right there. And that's basically just a swapping of what they have now. If you'll continue to scroll down for me, it'll show better on what they're looking at. Okay, that would be what phase 2 is considered. That is what the staff has said. Of course, the staff would like the expansion, which also includes phase 2, but this was what we kind of looked at and what we were planning on if we weren't able to do an expansion of the building by just doing the renovations in there. That shows the green space, the light green space, actually shows the increase in the fitness room size. And then also the orange is what the bathroom facilities are. You also see that we're creating another classroom in the back where all those offices are now. That would be the blue spot that's toward the upper of the screen. Okay, if you can scroll down. Okay, thank you. That shows what phase 3 is. And phase 3 is basically the expansion plus the interior renovations. So the additional green piece that almost looks like it's cutting into the current wraparound driveway that they have, that would be your 1,265 square foot expansion. And to give you an idea, since I know most of you have been over to the 7th floor renovations that we did, it would be the same type of flooring that was in the scat room up there, very, very similar. That would be a lot of your exercise classes, I would assume yoga, Zumba, that type. I wouldn't know everything that they offer, but I would assume that that would be it. And then, of course, we would still have the fitness room with the equipment, and you would still get your classrooms and your bathrooms. So we basically had them draw this all out, make sure it would meet code, and also make sure that I had the electrical capacity in the building, the plumbing, the sewer line, everything. I was a little skeptical about trying to add all this with the current utilities. Turns out we can do it. There will be a significant amount of mechanical changes that we will need to make. And when I say that, I mean tearing down a lot of ductwork, rerouting it, and because that building is on building automation systems, there'll be a amount of programming we have to do, changing graphics so that they can run it on the weekends, things like that, so that we can basically have all this rerouted cold and hot air going where it needs to go. And if you scroll down a little bit, it'll show the total costs of each phase. Yeah, that's the most important page right there. So to just do phase 1, which the staff felt would be no advantage operationally speaking, was $82,000. To do phase 2, which would be just the interior renovations, was $122,000. To do the expansion, which includes the phase 2 renovations, was estimated at $363,000. The issues that I was speaking to you about not having enough time, we were under a rush to get this report done so quickly to try to get it in front of the board. I've had to have some discussions with the the architect. There were some things that they had in there that I didn't feel that we had enough funds in for. So, and we also didn't build in anything for construction and materials testing because you'd be putting a slab out there and all those type of particulars. So I feel very confident in telling the board that for $390,000, you can have the interior renovations and the expansion of the senior center as designed currently. If the board was to move forward with that, the first thing I would need to do would be to get a contract in place to actually do the design and the construction drawings and bid it out. And one thing that I do stress is, and I've spoken with Londa and her staff about this, this will be a significant inconvenience for staff and the current events at the senior center, especially if it is to be done in this fiscal year. In fact, I'm not 100% sure that I can get it all done in this fiscal year. But to do that, you're talking about working during the day, shutting parts of that building down, and things like wedding reservations and things like that on the weekends. You are talking about impacting that. You're also talking about significantly impacting the HVAC system during just normal business hours. So I just throw that out there because I want the board to understand that if we were to do this, especially in this short time frame, there will be a significant impact on the operations.
Kyle, this overall project is what we had first thought that number was going to be about $750,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, we kind of thought 650 first, and then I was more comfortable with 750. Right. I still am, like I said, I got those late Friday night and reviewed them. I haven't been able to sit down with the architect. There was some things that they went over, and I need to see some engineering calculations on load of the mechanical load, especially since those are fitness rooms. This isn't our first time doing.
But the best thing is that by doing the feasibility study, we found out that we can do it for much less than we thought.
Yes, that is correct.
So it's good to err conservatively at the beginning, and then we can come back down. But
yes,
when you say there's a bad time of the year and a good time, there is no good time of the year to do this. But the best thing, if the board decides to go with this project,
yes,
we need to go and get a date so that they can stop taking reservations and they
correct,
can stop planning those events. So it'll be less of an impact.
Where I was going is I had a pretty lengthy discussion with staff over there, and when we'd be looking at kind of ramping up and doing this would be getting in the warmer months, and I do have some concerns about what I would have to do on the HVAC and how they would suffer during the day. No different than what we do in some of our other buildings when we renovate. I just want to make it very clear to the board, because if you guys get phone calls, I want to make sure that I gave you a heads up. That's a quick, short time frame to turn things around, especially we've got a lot of renovations on our plate right now.
Other than sharing this with us tonight, have you shared this with any of the senior citizens there that use the facility? Have you got any feedback from them on the idea of expanding the building? Or Londa, I don't know if you want to come up and talk about it, but I mean, have you gotten a reception of
Londa is
this
the
would be
only,
great to have more facility available to us and
nobody
understand
knows these
it?
numbers except the people in this room. Now, in terms of what we were looking at, I believe your staff is aware. I don't know if they've spoke to the actual patrons about it, but
They have been speaking over the last month or so, talking about the possible renovations, because that was something that the commissioners brought up, and they've been very excited about it and have had a lot of input as to what needed to be in the fitness room and what type of floor needed to be in the exercise room or dance room or fitness room, whatever you want to call it, along with acoustical. So they've been very involved and are very excited about it.
Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Are we looking to choose one of these phases before our next meeting? Or is
No,
this just
not
an update?
before. This would be something that,
Well, that
this
we
is an
will
update. We
decide.
could, it's up to us if we put it on the next meeting to proceed, or
Okay.
if there's additional information that would be needed.
All right. I know it seems like it seems like, it is a lot of information, but I wonder if potentially the Department of Aging Board would like to see all three of these proposals before we make a decision, and it would be good to have some sort of input. I know I'm the liaison to that board, and I've been very hesitant to mention any sort of specifics until we had something in writing. So now that we do, my suggestion would be to have that board look at it and discuss it and present a recommendation to us.
There's an advisory board in 2 weeks from today, right?
Yes.
2 weeks from today, so we'll be able to make a short presentation to them at that time, get their feedback.
I think we also ought to have a meeting with the majority of the senior citizens in this county and let them have their say too at one of our public meetings. I've talked to quite a few that are dissatisfied with things the way they are.
Is the advisory board meeting during lunchtime hours?
It is. I believe it's 11 or 11:30
Okay.
on the Monday of our general meeting. That's the third Monday of the month, yeah.
Okay.
Are these prices guaranteed?
No, sir, these prices are estimate. We haven't even done construction drawings to go out for bid.
In other words, it's just a guess.
No, they were run past a couple contractors and also using a typical square footage cost. It was exactly what I was told to do, is go get these costs. We haven't done the actual drawings to get it bid, if that's what you're asking.
So instead of 390,000, it might run 500,000, 600.
I would find that very difficult to believe that it would go that high, but the reason I want 390 is because I was a little hesitant on the 363 cost.
Yeah, we wanted, because there was two, if you remember right on your one-time list, there was two different projects. One was the interior and one was the exterior. We had some preliminary numbers, but we did this study so that we could get you better numbers. They won't be exact until it's actually bid, but that'll give you an idea of which direction you want to give staff to proceed. Do you want to do project number one, which is interior, or add on to the building, or don't do any of it? And that's what we just want to make sure you guys had better numbers and also see the proposed floor plans before we moved forward at all. So,
I think if we're going to do it, we need to do phase 3, but I think that needs to be done. That needs to be discussed after the Department of Aging Advisory Board has an opportunity to look at this and say, this will work, this won't work. How about if we tweak it a little bit here or there? So then we get a better idea about what will meet their needs, so that what you're saying, Commissioner Burge, is maybe they will get an understanding about what we're trying to do and help out there if this is something that they're interested in. But they're the ultimate consumers, so we need to make certain that they're going to use it. Looks like it's used as is a number of times throughout the year. The question is, can we get better use out of it than what is currently being done?
Okay, well, yes, sir.
Now, am I correct, if from what I've seen so far, is one-time funds can't be used on things you need, they have to be used on things you want. Is that correct?
One-time funds are used on things that do not have a recurring cost. Like, you would not use one-time funds to hire somebody because after that was spent in the first year, they would expect to continue to be employed. So the idea is to use it on something that you would be able to pay for. Yes, there would be maintenance costs down the road if it was a building, but it would be something that would be paid for and not a recurring expense. Not necessarily need or want, it's just that it wouldn't be a recurring expense. Any other comments? Okay, well, I would say then that if we can have you present this in 2 weeks to the Agent Advisory Board and get their input, we can put this on our agenda in 2 weeks for us to get a response as to, what they learned that day. Doesn't mean that we would necessarily take action on it in 2 weeks, but we can at least, have it on our agenda for some discussion. Okay.
So you want it on at the regular meeting, new business, or you want to bring it back in January after we've talked to them?
I mean, I'd like to know in 2 weeks at the regular meeting. If you have the meeting at lunchtime that day, then we can at least get some kind of a report on it, whether it's
Sure.
to do any action or not. We might want to wait till, I don't know how quickly how quickly commissioners you want to take action on something, on this item, one way or the other. But I'd like to at least if you have a meeting at lunch, by that night, we should be able to get some idea if they said, go with phase 3, or we don't want you to touch the building.
Sure.
What do you think, Commissioner Reese?
Well, if it's presented to them, if this is the first time they've seen all 3 proposals, they may very well need more time than just, their hour meeting during lunch. But, we can just see how the conversation goes, and if they do require more time, I'll just bring back an update.
Well, how about then, when we do our comment section at the regular meeting, then you can give us some feedback on the comments, and Kyle, you or Londa could also give us some comments, feedback at that meeting, and then we could place it in the January work session for us to kind of have enough time to make some decision.
Their agenda goes out about 10 days prior to the meeting, and we can send this to them so that they can have it and review it, not the whole packet, but the basics of it, so that they can review it, so that they will be educated at the meeting for discussion.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, potentially, there'll be action taken that day. We'll try to encourage that, but we'll just see how the conversation goes.
Right now, we'll just leave it as that you'll report back to us, and we can always, of course, amend the agenda that night. If you come back with a thumbs up, favorable, go with it, then, we could add something to the agenda in 2 weeks. Okay. Okay, just make sure we're all on the same page. Thank you. The next item we have, Randy Bass is here. Human Services, NCDOT Public Transportation Division, Section 5311 grant for fiscal year 2014. We will have a need for a public hearing.
Yes, ma'am. The state is actually coming out a little early with this. Normally we bring this to you a little later, but they got a little bit ahead of the game this time. We're very glad of that. So what we're doing is we're asking for, we're going for a grant under the 5311 for $721,447. That is a pass-through from the FTA through the state to us. This is the administrative and capital grant process. Along with that, there is the request that we hold the public hearing at your regular meeting, and also have motions to adopt the FY 2014 Community Transportation Program Resolution and the Human Services Agency Transportation Resolution. This is our grant that we seek to help offset the operational costs for CCTS that includes insurance on the vehicles, the purchase of new vehicles, which replaces the old vehicles that we are retiring.
Okay, any questions?
The local share is, give or take, 13%.
For the administrative commissioner, it's 15%.
Well, the total is average is about 13%.
Yes,
it's
sir.
15 for one and 10 for another.
That is correct.
Okay, and that allows us to maintain and use the current vehicles that we have in regards to transporting seniors?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so this is a grant that, is applied for annually, is that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so you said it's for replacing?
We have vehicles that age out under their 115,000 mile limit, and then they were asked that we replace those, and we have vehicles that'll be coming up in the FY 2014 budget process that will hit that mark.
Okay. And so that's, and now which vehicles will that be? Will that be for which program?
Oh, that covers all our programs.
All programs?
Yes, sir.
So, so it's strictly the capital?
And the administrative.
And the administrative?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This is all for senior citizens?
No, sir, this is for the whole county. This covers all operations for CCTS, which includes our regular service, RGP service, Medicaid services. We utilize these vehicles for all citizens.
Does that have the workforce in it too?
Mm-hmm. It sure does.
Without this grant, in order for you to operate, we would have to fund all of it locally.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? That's what I said. In order for his department to exist, then we would either apply for the grant, where we do approximately, would you say, 13%, or in order for him to still have the program and offer the services, we would have to pay every bit of it if we didn't get the grant. So it's
Or we
13%,
don't have to-
100%.
We don't have to pay any of it. It's,
That's the decision. If you
You
don't want to
wouldn't
offer
have to do
any of the services.
I understand.
Your phone will ring. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, let's go. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Let's go to Debbie Brannon is here and been very patient. 4.5 ITS Memorandum of Agreement to provide managed network services to Kannapolis City Schools, and Will Crabtree is still here.
Yes, I asked.
We're
Mr.
proud of you for
Crabtree.
staying I was wondering why you were here so late.
Thank him. Recently, Kannapolis City Schools had a retirement in their ITS area. Their network engineer retired. So one of the, we have offered Kannapolis to do network managed services for them. But in order for us to do that, we would need a little payment for that. And we would offer to use that revenue to, for an additional position in ITS in order to be able to provide those services.
Okay, questions?
What's the benefit for the county and benefit for Kannapolis City Schools?
And you asked Mr. Crabtree to stay for a reason.
It's a big benefit for us. We've just had a wonderful partnership with the ITS department here. They've provided services we would have never been able to provide just because they have a bigger staff than we could have and a bigger wealth of information that we don't have. So it's a great benefit to us because we were going to have to replace the person anyway. Now we can kind of pool our money together and get not only a replacement for that person, but also help further our partnership.
Does this help us financially regarding funding to Kannapolis City Schools as well as, I mean, are we saving money in the long run?
I think that we would.
I'm not asking for a dollar amount, but it sounds like there's a savings of money, but also it's an ability to spread money farther than it was going in the past.
Because the person would be working here also along with.
Correct. And we will have our network team will be working as they already are at Kannapolis City Schools. And we've been filling in since the engineer left. So we'll have a team of people to provide different levels of service for Kannapolis City School. They might just need somebody to pull a cable. We have that technician to do that. Or they might need engineering work. Well, we have an engineer that can do that. So we wouldn't have a person dedicated to be there full time. Sometimes we might have 3 or 4 people, at the Kannapolis City Schools working on their project. Some days they would be, providing services for the county government. So.
Will there be a billing so we can keep track of what these costs are to make certain that at the end of the year, at the end of the fiscal year, this is a financial endeavor that's worthy to continue to go forward?
The contract we have here, we've just got it through the end of this fiscal year. I thought to offer a trial period to see if it works for Kannapolis City Schools, if it works for us. So it's through the end of the fiscal year, but hopefully we can make a decision during the budget process.
Right.
To continue or discontinue it. So we'll know what to do beginning with the new fiscal year.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next item, Commissioners, so we've had some general discussion amongst ourselves concerning the way that we conduct kind of parts of our meeting. And so Rule 11 talks about the public comment section and the reports. And so one thought was to put those together. Now they're separated. You have public comments at the beginning, and then we make our comments at the end, and they may or may not be related. We do not have to make a change, but it was an item to bring up for discussion if we want to make a change. Mr. Downs, do you have something to add?
Yeah, the only thing that's required is you have to have a required public comment. There's nothing required as far as where on the agenda it needs to be. And you really only have three requirements that govern it, and that would be that you have to, that you can regulate or you can designate a spokesperson for a group. You can select delegates from large groups if your meeting room's full and you want to bring in delegates to talk. And then that they have to they They have to maintain order and decorum. In other words, they can't just yell and scream and curse and that kind of stuff. So other than that, the state's suggestion, or not the state, but the Institute of Government has got a suggested order of business, and that's exactly how you operate now, where the informal public comment follows your approval of your agenda and that type of thing. But there is nothing that tells you you have to do it at that location. You can move it at the end. Again, as Chairman Poole said, there has been some discussion that sometimes you have people who are coming to speak during informal comments that you would maybe like to react to, but it's at the end of the meeting and they're gone. You can't react or so throwing it out as an option for you. Like Chairman Poole said, there's no requirement to change it. You can leave it just as it is, but we wanted to bring it to your attention that if you do have the wishes to change it, we can go ahead and make that happen for you.
I'd like to see it stay like it is. It's unfair to the people who show up here might want to have something to say, but they can't spend 2 or 3 hours up here like we have to do, and let them speak first, and if they need to go somewhere, they can go. I don't have no problem with them.
If we were going to change it, I would encourage us to change it to change the commissioner's comments to the beginning.
First. Well, I don't have no problem with that.
Well, and then I would suggest that we, instead of starting at 6, we start at 6:30. We start at 6 with informal public comments, and then that way, if there's questions specifically that we can engage and we can talk about it, that is something to think about. And then we open up our regular meeting. We recess or stop, and then we open up our regular meeting at 6:30. But at least that gives us the opportunity. If someone wants to ask us questions, and for whatever reason they don't want to ask us before the meeting, they want somehow, I just think it gives us the opportunity so that if we're to do it, I agree with you, Commissioner Burge, I don't want them to wait, but if we were to do it, we open up at 6, we take informal public comments and being able to discuss some things, still keep the minutes at 3 minutes, but be able to engage in some little bit of conversation if we do that, and then we stop at 6:30, go into our regular meeting. If that takes place and someone still wants to have a chance, then we can start up with them making comments, and then we engage them after the meeting or something like that.
At 6:30?
Yes, sir.
I don't have a problem with that.
I mean, if we were to do it.
I mean, I would just rather not see the taxpayers have to sit out there and wait till the end of the meeting.
No, I agree.
To say something.
I fully agree with you on that one.
Okay. Any, Commissioner Eastburn, any ideas, any thoughts about it?
And I don't have no problem moving number 11 to the beginning.
In my opinion, I think it should just remain the same the way it is. I'm a little, I like Commissioner White's idea, just a little hesitant of, if there is a strong, dialogue between two, I'm not certain that, that may be the best.
Well, you don't want to take up all the 3 minutes engaging, so that what I would, if we were to do it, I would say the entire conversation should stop at 5 minutes to let other people talk, and it can be carried on later or at another time. But keeping it the same it is fine. I just, like Commissioner Burge was saying, is we don't want to hold people until the very end of the meeting, but at the same time, if someone says something or if we have a thought, we say, well, what about this? I don't want to eat into their 3 minutes to ask questions. I think it's rude. But keeping it like it is fine.
I know you're new, but would you like to? You've been with us for a long time listening.
I would have concerns that a lot of people that come are here because they have seen some item on the agenda that they wish to speak about, and to not give them an opportunity to talk until we may have already voted, I would have some concern about that. So I like it the way it is better.
Any ideas of moving it and doing, as Commissioner White said, the 6 to 6:30, doing the
I
comment
do
time
not
and
have
then
a
starting?
problem with that. I think that gives opportunity for more exchange of ideas back and forth, which is always a good thing, I think.
Okay, well, tell you what, why don't we, on this one, why don't we continue to think about it a little bit, and maybe we can talk about it at the retreat?
That sounds good, because if you are looking to, your next item is going to approve your meeting schedule for next year and the times and locations. So if you were looking to move to 6 o'clock, we need to know that before you vote on that. So, but if it's not something you want to do now and wait till later, then that's fine.
Okay, why don't we do that so we can have a little bit more discussion at our retreat, and everybody can think about how which way you like it. Do you like it like it is? Do you want to put it at the beginning and have dialogue? How you think that would be the best way for us to accomplish making sure that people who wish to be heard in informal public comments have that opportunity. And the next item, 4.7, is appointments for 2013. And I believe that everyone should have had an opportunity to look at this. We'll make a comment about the TAC-TCC. I don't know if you are aware, commissioners, but there's a new rule in town. There is a ethics class. Apparently, the one that we have to attend as commissioners is not considered to be good enough for that. And there is a financial disclosure piece. So my recommendation is that we have typically had a commissioner and an alternate. So my recommendation for this next year is that we not have an alternate in that position, because in all honesty, you're probably not going to attend the meeting, because I am slated to become the chair of that board. And though I have not seen the disclosure statement, I would hate to think that you have to do a financial disclosure and you're never going to attend a meeting. So that would be the reason, at least for this time. There is discussion with the legislature to change that for us, for this particular board. The reason being that this group neither makes a decision on any kind of roads and bridges projects. This board lets absolutely no contracts. This board has absolutely no financial decisions that are made. All of that is made at the state level. It is purely an advisory board. The people that I feel the worst for would be our staff members, Jonathan Marshall and Susie Morris, who also will be required to do the ethics training, which is like a full day on a Friday, or an online version that's supposed to be even worse. And they will have to do a financial disclosure. So I'm just being honest with you. I think that I have been contacted by every municipality, and there's county representatives in both Rowan and Cabarrus County on this board. And I have had a number of current members who have said that they will not be back in January. And they cannot, the legislation, based on the timing of the new rules, the legislature won't meet in order to make a change, so it will definitely take place this year. So that would be the reason why I suggested that unless somebody would like to be subjected to the statement of economic interest and doing another ethics class, my recommendation is that we do not have an alternate as far as the elected position goes. The rest of that you have in front of you, of course. There's been, most things are the same as before. Commissioner Morris has stepped in a number of spots, and I think it's pretty balanced this year. We had realized when I went over it that Commissioner Meismer had a lot more than most of us. I'm not real certain how we did that last year, but this is a little bit more balanced. So unless there's something that you want changed, then we can proceed with this list.
The one thing I want to, Madam Clerk, if you would check into the Home Community Care Block Grant Advisory Committee. I was at the meeting today, and they have records that my term expires this month. So if you'll check into that, as well as it notes here that I'm a voting member, and they have it as an ex officio non-voting member. So if you'll just confirm that, please, ma'am.
Good enough. Any other comments? Okay. And the next item we have is resolution establishing the meeting schedule. If I can get to that. Okay. And you can see the list, the draft on page 133, which has our regular meetings like normal, our work sessions at 4 o'clock on the first Monday, except for in September, and our regular meeting the third Monday, except for in January, when both of those fall with a holiday. And we list a couple of other items in the event that a majority goes to County Assembly Day or annual conference, things like that. We just list those just to make sure those dates are out there, so it's not a conflict later on. Anybody have comments about the meeting schedule? Okay, it's the same as it's always been, so, okay. And if you will go, you can pull up the agenda. There's a separate document that has the agenda for December 17th, which shows, if you all have that pulled up, you'll have to exit this one and pull up the other document.
December 17th.
Yes, for the 17th. The only change, what I would recommend is that on that one, we have, the document that you have, item number 6 is the QSCB reallocation request. I would ask that that be moved from consent to new business, item number 2. I would also, delete 7, which is the, under consent, General Services Senior Center renovations and expansion feasibility study findings. We would delete that from the agenda. I think that's the only changes. 3?
And,
okay, sorry, and item 3. So 3 and 7 under consent, we would delete. 6, we would move to new business. Is that clear to everybody? Okay. Is there any comments concerning?
Number 3.
Yes, I said 3.
Okay.
3 and 7 will delete.
3 and 7 go away.
6, under consent, will move to new business number 2. And I think the rest of it's good. Okay, if that's good for everybody, I would accept a motion that we approve the regular meeting agenda as amended. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Yes, ma'am.
Under the reports, you're going to get your presentation of the audit just under the report section instead of under new business? Just want to check.
Yes?
Yeah.
Unless we have some question, but that thing's forever.
Do we think we're going to be good? We should be good.
Yeah,
Okay.
you'll just call them there
Yeah.
instead of up top.
That's fine. Okay, anything else to come before the board tonight? It's been a long day. At this time, I would accept a motion that we adjourn.
So moved.
Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And good night.